Right, it's day 241 off the grid, and it's another one of my extreme solar panel repairs. And I'm not sure yet whether this is going to work because I'm only started getting into it, but while the iron's warming up, I thought I might as well make the first part of this video. So this panel here, this is the back side of it. There's a 15 watt Amorphous thin film type solar panel, Harbour Freight kind of one. I didn't get it from Harbour Freight. You can't get Harbour Freight in New Zealand, but it's the same kind as that Harbour Freight selling their 45 watt solar kit. And I've been doing a bit of research on solar power on the internet recently, and I've run into some really hardcore solar people that have got a few strange ideas that I am interested in. Whether I believe them or not yet is, well, that's up for evaluation. But one of the things is amorphous panels performing better under cloudy skies. Now, we've all heard this one before. Now, like many people, I tend to believe this is pretty much BS. I feel that marketeers have just extrapolated this from the whole idea of, because this is how a thin film panel works. See, each of the cells are these long strips. Let's pretend this is the front side. So if one shaded the panel like this, most of the cells would still be exposed. So therefore, if some dappled light falls on a panel like this, it would still give a reasonable output. Where, say you take a mono or polycrystalline, each cell, if you shade just one cell, because all the current has to go through that cell to get out of the panel, it will massively reduce the current output of the whole cell. So this idea that amorphous panels can perform in partially shaded area, and that's kind of been converted to this idea they can work in low light. Well, you know, as you can figure out from that sort of reasoning, that would just be bullshit. However, I have since learned a little thing about amorphous panels which I didn't know before, and that is that they respond more to visible light, to the blues and the greens apparently, whereas your mono panels like these ones supposedly respond more to the infrared spectrum. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Which would seem to suggest that under conditions of cloud, the infrared light would fall off more rapidly than the visible light. Thus, would stand to reason that the amorphous panels can continue providing not necessarily their full output, but a less reduced output than the monos, because the clouds, like the shitty day today, cut down the infrared light. I mean, here's an example. I'll go up on the ladder. Slightly ranty, mucking around video, but I think there's some interesting points here. I've got the solar water panel here. Now, I haven't done anything with it yet. I haven't hooked it up. Me and Owen just chucked it up on the roof, and that's where it's been all winter, getting all sort of covered in crap. But these, of course, do not work on cloudy days. They need direct sunlight, pretty much. Naturally, they are absorbing more infrared. And apparently so it is with the monocrystallines, whereas these amorphous ones handle the the green and blue light more, which would account for the fact that small amorphous panels, like on calculators and fortune cats and things like that, perform better under artificial light than a monocrystalline will. But like I say, I want to do some tests and see if this is actually for real. So as part of starting to do my tests, I found that I was getting almost no output from two of these panels that were in series on a 24 volt system. So I looked into it a bit more, and this one was indeed faulty. So first of all, I thought it might have been a cable fault. The way they join the cables on is susceptible to corrosion, but as you can see, there's no corrosion issues here. There's a built-in blocking diode, which I didn't know about, but that's okay. But what has happened is where the positive wire here, I don't know if you see this camera has no macro, joins the panel, there's a little tabbing wire which runs down here. There's a tabbing wire on this side for the positive rail and a tabbing wire that runs down here under the silicone gunk for the negative. And although the negative one, as you can see, is severed, that was just because of my diving in there and trying to pick out all the silicone. But you can see just there is where the tab comes out, so I've got to resolder that. However, the fault was because on the positive end, corrosion had set in and it had eaten away at that tabbing wire to the point where it disappeared under the glass, so there was really no real connection. There was a high resistance connection, which meant you could still get full open circuit voltage, but about 0.1 milliamps out of this thing. Now the good one's doing about, before it was quite cloudy and it was doing about 137 milliamps, so they should do better than that, but it's a cloudy day. So what I've just been doing is digging away at the glass with a screwdriver, and I've actually managed to chip away the glass here to the point where I've exposed the tabbing wire, which is sandwiched between the two layers of glass. Of course, the front glass holds the thin film, which is the amorphous panel. So if I'm lucky, I should be able to solder a new wire onto this and get this panel up and running. Now, I'm not guaranteeing success, and normally I don't make these videos if I don't have success, but this time I thought it might be interesting anyway. So I've rabbited on for about 6.5 minutes, nearly 6, the soldering iron will be warm now. I'll go and solder this and I'll film the results. Okay, and here's the repairs done. Because the negative, I just used a short little bit of wire just to tail onto this one to make it reach again after I'd restripped it, and that's connected to the tab which was sticking out. And the positive pole, which of course was the more problematic one, I had to dig away a bit more glass out of there to make a good connection, so I actually ended up getting quite brutal with it. It's amazing what this stuff will take, and you can grind that glass away quite nicely. So I soldered that on and connected it to the wire there. So shall we see if it worked? I've got the meter on. As you can see, there's almost nothing there now because this is face down, so I'll turn over the panel. We'll see if it was successful. Oh, there's some current. Oh, look at that, there we go. Now, considering I'm partially standing in front of it and the clouds have come over again, there's the panel, there's my hand holding it out, there's the current, 130 milliamps, proves this panel is working as well as it ever did. So now I've just got to seal it up and put it back together again. There are a lot of screws, this is a mission, and these silly little bungs which a few have actually already missing, and I managed to lose one more, but whatever. So before I put this back together, I'm going to have to seal all this wiring up, and ideally I should use some silicone like what's already there, but I'm going to use Impatient Man silicone, i.e. hot melt glue, just so that I can do it quickly and put this thing back together. It's not as flexible, but in this application it should be just as sealy, as it were. I did consider taking out the blocking diode. Normally this panel runs with another one as a 24 volt wiring. I really don't need two blocking diodes in series, but just in case at some other point I want to run them as 12 volt parallel panels or something, I think I'll leave it in there, because from what I understand, thin film panels are less tolerant of backfeeds than crystalline panels are, so they can be burnt out easier basically. So we'll leave the diodes in there. Saves having to take it out anyway. So that's that basically. I'm just going to glue the wires up, test it again, put the back of the case partially on, test it again, I always like to do that. Get a bit paranoid, I guess. The whole thing is to know, you want to know that it's going to work right up until the point it's reinstalled, and if it does fail during those stages, you kind of want to know when it did. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do now. Put it back together. I say on day 241 off the grid. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of a shot of it now that I've done the hot melt gluing. See, that's all entombed under the glue there nicely. Same with the negative pole down there. And I just decided to use hot melt glue to entomb this connection as well, rather than bobble leaky tape or trying to find another sleeve. And I just sort of stitched that heat shrink back together using hot melt glue again. Quick and dirty, you know, we like quick and dirty around here. So now I'm going to assemble the frame again. I was considering whether I have to take steps to deal with moisture and grease around here where the cable comes out, but it actually looks like there hasn't really been any. So I think we'll just leave it at that for now. I did even consider whether putting this panel on the opposite way around. I've got these up on the frame with this being the top. The idea was, of course, being uphill, the water's not likely to run down onto it and into it, but I guess water could still run into it. But it doesn't look like that's been happening, so I'll probably just install it back the way it was. And yeah, there we have it. Amorphous panel, and now I can do some useful evaluations and let you know whether I have changed my opinion on amorphous panels or not. I might do one shot with it installed again in the shed, I'm not sure. We'll see.